Welcome to the Explainer. Look, if you've ever glanced at a massive Dungeons & Dragons rulebook and felt totally overwhelmed by the sheer volume of information, you are in the exact right place. Today we're demystifying D&D. We are going to take this legendary, absolutely massive rule set and break it down into a simple, logical engine that anyone can understand. To do this, we're using a funnel approach, starting really wide with the big picture and then getting beautifully granular.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Here is our roadmap for today. First, the rhythm of play. Second, the core D20 engine. Third, surviving in combat. And finally, number 4, choose your class.
All right, starting with Section 1, the rhythm of play, D&D's core conversation.
Before we even think about touching dice or doing math, it's absolutely crucial to remember that at its heart, D&D is really just a structured, cooperative conversation between the dungeon master and the players. Now, to understand how this plays out over time, just think of your game like a television show. A session is a single episode, a few hours around the table on a Friday night. An adventure acts like a full season, usually dealing with a major villain. And the campaign? Well, that's the whole shebang, the entire TV series spanning multiple seasons. That's exactly why players get so invested. You're writing this multi-year epic together from scratch.
So within that Friday night episode, how do we actually play? It's basically a simple, continuous 3-step loop. Step 1. The dungeon master describes a scene. Maybe you're standing before a yawning chasm with a creaking wooden drawbridge. Step 2. The players describe their actions. Someone might say, I want to examine those gargoyles to see if they're actually statues. Or maybe just, I try to talk the bartender into giving us free ale. And then, Step 3. The DM narrating the results. This rhythm is the core of the game, and it holds true whether you're negotiating with a king or kicking down a dungeon door.
Moving right along to Section 2, the core D20 engine, determining success.
Okay, so what happens when a player's action isn't a sure thing, when outcomes are uncertain, like, say, trying to actually leap across that gaping chasm? We rely on the game's physical engine, and that boils down to what's called a D20 test. This is the absolute bedrock of D&D. Step 1, you roll your 20-sided die, your D20, and yet you always want to roll high here. Step 2, add your modifiers. These are just bonuses from your character's natural abilities like strength or special training called proficiency. Finally, Step 3, compare that total to a target number. If your die roll plus your modifiers equals or beats that target, boom, you succeed. If not, well, the narrative takes a dramatic turn.
Now you might be wondering, what exactly is that target number you're trying to hit? In-game, it's called the difficulty class, or DC. The Dungeon Master secretly decides this number based on how tough the task is, which really keeps the suspense alive at the table. Trying to crack an ancient magical cipher? That's going to be a high DC, maybe an 18. But just forcing open a slightly stuck wooden door? That might be a super low DC, like a 10. Your goal is always to meet or beat that specific number.
And honestly, one of the best parts of the system is how it handles changing circumstances. Instead of bogging us down with complicated math, the game uses this elegant mechanic called advantage and disadvantage. Sometimes the odds are wildly in your favor, or heavily stacked against you. If things are in your favor, like ambushing an enemy from the shadows, you get advantage. You roll 2 d20s and get to keep the higher number. But if you're trying to shoot a bow in the middle of a blinding blizzard, that's disadvantage. You roll 2 d20s and you're forced to use the lower number. It's a brilliant way to instantly reward clever play or penalize a bad situation.
Let's move to Section 3, surviving in combat, raising the stakes. And this brilliantly illustrates what happens when the talking stops and the blades come out. The game enters a highly structured state. Suddenly, everyone has to take turns, the stakes are literally life or death, and your imagination gets mapped directly onto a battle grid. You've got huge area of effect spells going off, heavily armored heroes swinging steel, just total fantasy chaos. But beneath that chaos is a very strict set of rules keeping everything fair. So, let's break down the actual combat loop. A great example from the rules is a skeleton ambush beneath Castle Ravenloft. First up, everybody rolls initiative. This is just a quick D20 check to figure out the turn order fastest characters act first. Next, you take turns. When your turn comes up, you might make an attack roll. Remember that D20 test we talked about? This is it. But instead of a generic difficulty class, your target number here is the enemy's armor class, or AC. If your attack equals or beats that skeleton's AC, you score a hit. And finally, you'll roll damage to see how much health you actually chip away.
But combat isn't just swinging swords, right? The source material gives us this awesome micro-narrative of two characters, Mirabella the magic user and Gareth the cleric. Mirabella casts a spell called Thunderwave, creating a massive 15-foot cube of pure concussive force. Here, instead of Mirabella rolling an attack against armor, the rules completely flip the script. The defenders have to react. The skeletons are forced to make a Constitution saving throw, rolling a d20 to try and resist the spell by hitting a DC of 15. If they fail, they take huge damage and get violently thrown backward.
Which brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, Section 4, Choose Your Class, Your Avatar in the Multiverse.
Now what's really interesting about this slide is that this is where you get the keys to the kingdom. Picking a class dictates your character's entire vibe, their vocation, their special talents, how they fight. There are 12 core classes, and the variety is staggering. You have physical powerhouses like the Barbarian and Fighter, stealthy skirmishers like the Rogue, divine magic users like the Cleric and Paladin, and arcane casters rewriting reality like the Wizard and Warlock. What's great is the game offers low-complexity classes for folks who just want to jump in and smash things, all the way up to high-complexity classes for players who love juggling intricate spells.
To make sense of all 12, we can basically split them into two massive camps: martial classes and magic classes. Martial classes rely on raw physical prowess. They're using strength or dexterity to wield weapons and wear heavy armor to survive the front lines. Magic classes, on the other hand, rely on their minds. They use wisdom, charisma, or intelligence to literally rewrite the rules of reality by slinging spells.
Let's zoom in on the specific flavor of the martial classes for a second, just to see how they play. Take the Barbarian. At level 1, they get Rage, and that isn't just a cool word. Mechanically, it gives them resistance to physical damage, so they can just absorb massive hits, plus advantage on strength checks. Then look at the Fighter. By level 2, they get Second Wind, letting them heal themselves with pure stamina and Action Surge, which literally lets them take an entirely extra action on their turn. They completely dominate the flow of combat without ever casting a single spell.
So, the crucial point is that while martial classes excel at physical rules, magic users intentionally break them. Take the Cleric. At level 2, they gain Channel Divinity, pulling power straight from the outer planes. They can use a Divine Spark to instantly heal a friend or blast an enemy, or, and this is wild, they can turn undead. Going back to that skeleton ambush, this is exactly what Gareth the Cleric did. He held up his holy symbol, forced every skeleton to make a saving throw, and when they failed, they were blasted by radiant light and eradicated. Magic gives you these huge, game-changing solutions.
All right, we've covered the whole shebang from the macro down to the micro. You now know that D&D is really just a conversational rhythm of play between the DM and the players. You know the engine running under the hood. Roll a d20, add your modifiers, and beat that target DC. You see how combat flows with initiative and armor class, and you've gotten a taste of the incredible tactics waiting for you in the class system. All that intimidating complexity really just fades away, leaving you, your friends, and an epic story. The multiverse awaits, so, armed with the rules, what kind of adventurer will you become?